I handed my daughter-in-law's parents a sealed envelope at my front door that morning. They opened it standing on my porch, and I watched the color drain from both their faces at once. My daughter-in-law had been smirking behind them just seconds before. She stopped. I am 73 years old. I have lived in this house in Baltimore for 41 years. I raised 3 children here. I buried my husband from this living room. And I had spent the last 6 weeks listening to my son's wife explain to me, in my own kitchen, why her parents deserved to live here more than I did. Before I go any further, let me say something honest. If this opening hit you in any way, subscribe to Voices of Emily so you stay here with me for the rest of this story. I am putting a part of myself into these words, and I want you to walk through it with me. And when you can, leave a comment telling me what this moment reminded you of. Your voice matters here. Then tap the like button so this story reaches someone who might need it more than we know. The first time Vanessa said it, I thought I had misheard her. We were sitting at my kitchen table, the same table where I used to help my son Marcus with his homework 30 years ago. She had her hands folded in front of her like she was about to deliver a presentation. She said her parents were getting older. She said they needed stability. She said my house was perfect because it had the bedroom on the main floor and the bathroom right next to it. I nodded. I thought she was asking if they could visit for a while. I said of course, they were welcome anytime. She smiled, but it was not the kind of smile that reaches the eyes. She said no, I did not understand. They were not visiting. They were moving in. Permanently. I set my coffee cup down slowly. I asked her what she meant. She said it again, slower this time, like I was the one who needed help understanding English. Her parents were moving in. Marcus had already agreed. They would take the main floor bedroom. I could keep the upstairs. She said it would be better for everyone. I did not raise my voice. I have learned over 7 decades that raising your voice almost never changes what happens next. I asked where Marcus was. She said he was at work, but he knew. He supported it. He thought it was the right thing to do. That afternoon, I walked through the house alone. I stood in the main floor bedroom, and remembered when it used to be my sewing room. I remembered the quilt I made in here when Marcus was born. Sitting by the window in the winter light, stitching each square by hand because I wanted something that would last. The quilt was still on my bed upstairs. It had lasted 43 years. I thought about what Vanessa had said. Better for everyone. I wondered who everyone was. I wondered if I was included in that count. I waited until Marcus came home that evening. He would not look at me when I asked him about it. He stood in the hallway between the kitchen and the living room, the same hallway where I used to measure his height with pencil marks on the doorframe. He said Vanessa's parents needed help. He said we had the space. He said it was temporary. I asked him what temporary meant. He said maybe a year, maybe 2. I asked him if he remembered that this was my house. He looked at me then, and I saw something in his face I had not seen before. He said it was really our house now. His and Vanessa's. Because they had been making the mortgage payments for the last 3 years. That part was true. After my husband died, the bills had gotten ahead of me. The insurance money had run out faster than I expected. The property taxes went up. The roof needed repair. Marcus had stepped in without me asking. He never made me feel small about it. He just quietly started paying. I had thought it was love. I had thought it was a son taking care of his mother. I did not know he had been keeping a ledger in his mind. Vanessa appeared in the doorway behind him. She said they were not trying to push me out. She said I could stay as long as I wanted. She said upstairs. I could stay upstairs. She said it like she was offering me a gift. I looked at my son. I asked him if this was really what he wanted. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Vanessa put her hand on his shoulder. He said it was the right thing to do. He said her parents had helped them out when they were first married. and now it was their turn. I did not remember Vanessa's parents helping them. I remembered Marcus and Vanessa living in my basement for 2 years while they saved for their own place. I remembered cooking dinner for them every night. I remembered watching their dog when they went on vacation. But I did not say any of that. I just nodded. I went to bed that night and did not sleep. I lay there thinking about the pencil marks in the hallway. I thought about the corner of the living room where the Christmas tree went every year, in the same spot since 1984. I thought about the back bedroom where my husband took his last breath, with me holding his hand and our children standing quiet against the wall. I thought about how many hours I had spent in this house, how many meals I had cooked in that kitchen, how many times I had mopped that floor. The next morning, Vanessa told me her parents would arrive in 2 weeks. She had already arranged for a moving truck. She had already bought new sheets for the main floor bedroom, the kind with the high thread count from the expensive store downtown. She asked if I needed help moving my things upstairs. I told her no. She looked relieved. She also told me her parents would need to use the kitchen in the mornings because her father had diabetes and needed to eat at specific times. She said it would be easier if I could adjust my schedule. She said it with the same folded hands, the same presentation voice. I said I would think about it. She smiled again. That same smile. I spent those 2 weeks thinking. I am not a woman who makes decisions in anger. Anger burns out too quickly, and then you are left standing in the ashes wondering what you were so heated about in the first place. I needed something that would last. I needed something that would not fade when my feelings cooled. I remembered something my mother told me once, decades ago, when a neighbor tried to take advantage of her kindness. The neighbor had borrowed my mother's good china for a party and then refused to return it, saying my mother had given it as a gift. My mother did not argue. She did not raise her voice. She simply went to the neighbor's house with the receipt from when she bought the china, and a copy of the note the neighbor had written promising to return it. The neighbor handed over the china without another word. My mother said that some people do not understand boundaries until they are drawn in ink. I made a phone call to my cousin Diane in Cleveland. Diane is a retired real estate attorney. She is also the only person in my family who has ever told me I was too nice for my own good. She said it at my husband's funeral, standing in this very living room, watching people help themselves to the food I had cooked while I sat in the corner alone. She said I needed to learn when to stop giving. I explained the situation to her. I told her about Vanessa's announcement. I told her about Marcus standing in the hallway, unable to look at me. I told her about the mortgage payments. Diane was quiet for a long time. Then she said 3 words. Check the deed. I said I did not need to check the deed. I knew the house was in my name. Diane said to check it anyway. She said people have a way of forgetting what is legally true when it becomes inconvenient. She said I needed to know exactly where I stood before Vanessa's parents showed up with a moving truck. I went to the county records office the next day. It was in a building downtown that smelled like old paper and floor wax. I had not been there in over 20 years, not since my husband and I refinanced the mortgage back in 2003. The woman behind the counter was young, maybe 30, with tired eyes. I told her I needed a copy of my deed. She asked for my address and my identification. Then she disappeared into a back room. She came back 15 minutes later with a folder. Inside was the deed to my house. I had not looked at it in so long that I had forgotten some of the details. My husband and I had bought the house in 1984 for $62,000. It seemed like so much money back then. We had saved for 3 years to afford the down payment. We ate rice and beans 4 nights a week. We did not go on vacation. We did not buy new clothes. We saved every dollar we could because we wanted our children to grow up in a house, not an apartment. The deed showed both our names originally. But when my husband died in 2019, the house passed entirely to me through right of survivorship. It was mine alone. No one else's name appeared anywhere on the document. Marcus had been paying the mortgage, yes. But a mortgage payment is not ownership. It is a gift, or it is rent, or it is a loan. It is not a transfer of title. I made 3 copies of the deed. Then I asked the woman behind the counter if there was anything else in the file. She checked. She said there was one more document. A home equity loan agreement from 1994. I had forgotten about that loan. We took it out to pay for Marcus's college tuition when he got accepted to the state university. He wanted to be an engineer. He ended up switching to business in his 3rd year, but by then the money was already spent. The loan had been paid off years ago, but the document still existed in the county records. I read it standing there at the counter. There was a clause I did not remember. It said that any family member who contributed financially to the home would be considered a tenant, not an owner, unless explicitly added to the deed through a formal transfer process. My husband had insisted on that clause. He said it was to protect the kids from each other, to make sure no one could claim they owned part of the house just because they helped with a bill or two. I had thought he was being paranoid. Now I understood he was being wise. I made copies of that document too. Then I went home and sat at the kitchen table with all the papers spread out in front of me. I read them over and over until I had every word memorized. That evening, I called Diane back. I told her what I had found. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said I had options. I asked her what kind of options. She said the kind that would make things very clear, very quickly. She said I could let Vanessa's parents move in and hope for the best, or I could set boundaries now before the situation became impossible to untangle. I asked her what she would do. She said she would protect herself. She said kindness was important, but so was self-preservation. She said I had spent my whole life taking care of other people, and maybe it was time to take care of myself. She helped me draft a letter that night over the phone. It took us 2 hours. We went through 4 different versions before we got the tone right. It needed to be firm but not cruel. It needed to be legally clear but not cold. It needed to sound like me, not like a lawyer. When we finished, Diane read it back to me one more time. Then she said to print it, sign it, and have it ready for when Vanessa's parents arrived. I did not tell Marcus what I was planning. I did not tell Vanessa. I simply waited. I have learned that patience is not the same thing as weakness. Patience is what you do when you know anger will not serve you. The days before Vanessa's parents arrived were strange. Vanessa came over every afternoon to prepare the main floor bedroom. She brought new curtains. She brought a lamp she said would be easier on her father's eyes. She brought a small television and set it up on the dresser that used to hold my sewing supplies. She moved through my house like it was already hers, rearranging things, taking measurements, talking about where her mother's plants would go. I watched her. I did not stop her. I just watched. Marcus came over one evening to help move furniture. He asked if I was okay with everything. I said I was fine. He looked relieved. He said Vanessa had been worried I was upset. I told him I was not upset. He smiled and hugged me. It was the first time he had hugged me in months. I wondered if he would still hug me in a few days. The day Vanessa's parents arrived, I woke up early. I made coffee. I sat on the back porch and watched the sun come up over the neighbor's fence. The air was cool. It was early September, and the leaves were just starting to turn. I thought about all the Septembers I had watched from this porch. 41 of them. I thought about how many more I might have left. I heard the moving truck before I saw it. It came down the street just after 9 in the morning, loud and slow. I went to the front door and waited. Vanessa's father was a tall man with gray hair and a loud voice. His name was Donald. Her mother was small and nervous, the kind of woman who apologizes for taking up space. Her name was Patricia. They pulled up in the rented truck with all their furniture packed in the back. Vanessa was already there, standing on my porch with her arms crossed, smiling like she had just won something. I opened the door. I welcomed them kindly. I said I had prepared something for them. I handed Donald the envelope. He looked at it, confused. He asked what it was. I said it was important, and he should read it before they started unloading. Vanessa asked what I was talking about. I did not answer. I just waited. Donald opened the envelope standing there on my porch. Patricia stood beside him, and they read it together. I watched their faces change. First confusion, then understanding, then something that looked like fear. Inside was the letter Diane and I had written. It explained that the house was solely in my name, with copies of the deed attached as proof. It explained that Maryland law was very clear about tenant rights and property ownership. It explained that any individuals moving into the home without a formal lease agreement would be considered guests, and that guests could be asked to leave at any time, with 72 hours notice. It also included a second document, a formal lease agreement, month to month, rent set at $2,000, which was slightly below market rate for a private bedroom and bathroom in Baltimore, but not by much. The lease included standard clauses about noise, maintenance, and household duties. It included quiet hours. It included rules about shared spaces. And it included a clause that said any disrespect toward the primary leaseholder, meaning me, would result in immediate termination of the lease with 30 days' notice. Donald read it twice. His face went red, then pale. Patricia looked like she might cry. Vanessa snatched the paper out of her father's hands. She read it standing there on the porch, her face getting darker with every line. Then she looked at me. She said I could not do this. I said I absolutely could. I said that if her parents wanted to live here, they were welcome to sign the lease. If they did not want to sign, they were welcome to turn the truck around. I said it calmly, the same way I used to tell my children it was time for bed. Vanessa said this was not what they had agreed on. I said we had not agreed on anything. I said she had told me what was going to happen, and I had listened. But listening is not the same as agreeing. She said Marcus would never allow this. I said Marcus did not own the house. She said he had been paying my mortgage for 3 years. I said I was grateful for that, and I would be happy to discuss a formal repayment plan if he wanted his money back. I said Diane had already helped me draft a promissory note for that purpose, if he was interested. Patricia started crying then. Real crying, not the angry kind. She said she did not understand. She said Vanessa had told them this was all arranged. She said they had already sold their condo in Florida. They had closed on it 2 weeks ago. The new owners were moving in at the end of the month. I felt something turn in my chest when she said that, but I did not let it show on my face. I looked at Vanessa. I asked her if she had sold her parents' home without making sure she could keep her promise to them. She did not answer. Donald answered for her. He said they had a buyer who was paying cash and wanted to close quickly. He said Vanessa had told them not to worry, that everything was arranged, that they could live here as long as they needed. He said they had trusted her. I told them they were still welcome to stay. I said the lease was fair. I said $2,000 a month was less than they would pay almost anywhere else for a private bedroom, bathroom, and access to a full kitchen. But I also said I would not be pushed out of my own home. I would not be sent upstairs like a guest in the house where I had lived for 41 years. Marcus pulled up in his car just then. He got out and saw all of us standing there on the porch. He saw the paper in Vanessa's hand. He saw his mother-in-law crying. He asked what was going on. Vanessa shoved the lease at him. He read it standing in the driveway. I watched his face. I watched him realize what I had done. When he looked up at me, I saw something I had never seen before. I saw him understand that I was not the same woman who had let him move into my basement rent-free. I was not the same woman who had said yes to everything, because I was afraid of losing him. He said this was not fair. I asked him what part was not fair. The rent that was below market rate. or the lease that protected everyone's rights, or the fact that I was still willing to let them stay at all. He did not have an answer. Donald asked if he could speak with his wife privately. I said of course. They walked down to the end of the driveway. Vanessa followed them. Marcus stayed behind. He stood there on the porch with me, and neither of us said anything for a long time. Finally, he asked me why I did not just tell him about the deed. I said I did not think I should have to. I said he was my son, and I thought he knew me well enough to know I would not let someone take my home without a fight. He said Vanessa had been so sure. I asked him what she had been sure about. He said she had been sure I would just go along with it. She had been sure I would not make trouble. I told him I was not making trouble. I was setting boundaries. There is a difference. Vanessa's parents came back up the driveway after about 10 minutes. Donald's face was set hard. Patricia was still crying, but quietly now. Donald said they would sign the lease. He said they did not have another choice right now, but they would start looking for another place immediately. I told him that was fine. I said they were welcome to stay as long as they needed, as long as the lease was respected. I also told him something else. I said that if they needed help finding a place, I would help them look. I said I understood what it was like to trust someone, and then find out you were wrong. Patricia looked at me when I said that. She nodded. We all went inside. Donald and Patricia signed the lease at the kitchen table. Vanessa stood in the corner with her arms crossed, not speaking. Marcus stood in the hallway, watching. When it was done, I made copies for everyone. I kept the original. Then I helped them unload the truck. I carried boxes. I showed Patricia where the light switches were. I explained how the thermostat worked. I acted like everything was normal, because in a way it was. They were tenants now. I was their landlord. The terms were clear. Vanessa did not speak to me for 3 days. She stayed at a friend's house. Marcus slept on the couch in the living room. I heard him some nights, moving around in the dark, but I did not go downstairs. I let him sit with his choices. Patricia and Donald settled in quietly. Donald got up early every morning to check his blood sugar and make breakfast. Patricia stayed in the bedroom most of the first week, unpacking slowly. On the 4th day, I knocked on their door and asked if she wanted help. She said yes. We spent the afternoon organizing her closet. She did not talk much, but when we were almost done, she said thank you. She said Vanessa had not told them the whole truth. She said she should have asked more questions. I told her we all make mistakes when we trust the people we love. On the 8th day, Vanessa came back. She sat at the kitchen table and told me she had made a mistake. She said she thought she was helping her parents. She said she did not think about how it would make me feel. I did not tell her whether I believed that or not. I just nodded. Marcus asked if we could go back to the way things were. I said no. I said the way things were had allowed this to happen in the first place. I said from now on, everything would be clear. If he wanted to help with the mortgage, I would keep a record. If he ever wanted that money back, we would sit down with Diane and work it out properly. But the house would stay in my name until I decided otherwise. He asked when that might be. I said I did not know. Maybe when I died. Maybe sooner. Maybe never. I said it would be my decision, not his. He did not like that answer. But he accepted it. Patricia and Donald stayed for 4 months. They paid rent on time every month. Donald got a part-time job at a hardware store near the harbor. Patricia started going to a quilting group at the church down the street. She showed me some of her work one evening. It was beautiful. She said she had not quilted in years, but being here had reminded her how much she used to love it. In the evenings, she and I would sit on the back porch and drink tea. She would tell me about her life. She told me about her own mother, who had lost her home in a divorce when Patricia was a teenager. Her mother had spent the last 10 years of her life living in other people's basements and spare rooms. always afraid of being asked to leave. Patricia said she had been so afraid of ending up like that. I told her I understood. I told her I had been afraid of the same thing. She asked me one night if I had ever been angry at Vanessa. I said yes. She asked if I was still angry. I said no. I said anger takes too much energy, and I needed my energy for other things. She said Vanessa was ashamed. I said good. Shame can be a teacher if you let it. When Patricia and Donald finally found a small apartment near the harbor, Patricia hugged me at the door and thanked me. She said I had taught her something important. I asked her what. She said I had taught her that kindness does not mean letting people walk over you. She said I had shown her that it was possible to be firm and still be good. I told her I hoped that was true. After they left, Marcus and Vanessa came over less often. We still had dinner once a month, usually on Sundays. Vanessa was polite now, but there was a distance between us that had not been there before. I do not think it will ever fully close. Some things, once broken, do not go back together the same way. But I am still here. I am still in my house. The pencil marks are still in the hallway. The corner where the Christmas tree goes is still the same corner. And when I sit on the back porch in the evenings, I do not wonder if someone is going to take it from me. I do not wonder if I belong here. I just sit, and I remember, and I am home.